this level of manipulation by something that we don't even know, that has been with us for God knows how long, at least a few hundred years, maybe longer, maybe forever.
Oh, yeah.
That scares the crap out of me.
Well, it does.
And what about you?
Well, I got a funny feeling the government is never going to admit to it, because how do you sit there and say, hey, people are being abducted, we have no control on it, or do they have control? It's two ways you look at it, because, one side of the street says, that certain aliens are working with the government, the military, in exchange for, technology. But then I think if people would panic to such a point, if they, besides, worrying about UFOs right now, the release of disclosure, how would people handle it if they say, hey, it's true, people are being abducted, we don't have no control, we can't stop it, we don't know what to do? I mean, how many people would freak out?
I think it would be a huge paradigm shift. That's for sure. And I think you're right about that, honestly, because my personal opinion is that the government doesn't really know, much more than we do, probably. Certainly, I don't think they have any control over it.
No, I don't.
So if they do have a little more information, maybe because, they've come out relatively recently, and there have been active duty pilots who have gone on record as saying that they've encountered UFOs, during training missions, and so on and so forth. And so maybe the government has information that they're not telling us, but that information isn't necessarily anything we don't already know. So when you sort of look at the reports by these Navy pilots, for instance, the craft that they describe isn't really different than the craft that people have been describing for decades, since back in the 40s, really.
No.
Or earlier, if you get into, things sort of outside of the modern UFO culture. So I don't know. I don't know that they have a handle on this any more than anybody else. So I think you're absolutely right. If the government just came out and said something's happening, and it's real bad, and we don't even know what it is, but we do know that there's not a damn thing we can do about it.
Yeah.
I don't see people reacting to that very well.
I don't either. Hey, Tobias, guess what? It's at the top of the hour. We're going to take a 3-minute break. I'm going to put you on hold. Go get yourself a nice cup of tea. That's what I'm going to do over here.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, we'll be back in about 3.5 minutes.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
What we are asking for from the government is full disclosure. We know what we're seeing, and there are so many of us. We're not
As I gaze upon the annals of time, one thing that comes through: we are not alone in this universe. It's a thought that rings true. Ancient cave dwellers drew spacecraft on the poles. It's a recurring theme. I've seen the same thing while walking late at night, and I know it's not a dream.
From Maelstrom to Manhattan, Boston to LA, there are people asking questions and they will not go away. But what has been seen might not be what it seems. The government's shadows dance in the sea.
Tell the truth, they will ridicule everything you say and do. It's all part of a deception. It's a puppet master's tool. And I've seen those craft shut down the silos from 10 miles away. And there ain't nothing that the Pentagon can do. They can't make them go away.
From Malmstrom to Manhattan, Boston to LA, there are people asking questions and they will not go away. But what has been seen might not be what it seems. The government's shadows dance and deceive. From Malmstrom to Manhattan, New York to LA, you can't get the picture if they're pale or they're gray. But what we have seen might not be what it seems when the government's shadows dance and deceive.
There are competing agendas to determine mankind's fate. Their influence here for millions of years, all part of a cosmic state. Lemuria, Atlantis, and Dwaka view, all part of Earth's history. And spacecraft and stargates are really nothing new. They're all part of a lost memory.
From Malmstrom to Manhattan, Paris to LA, there are people asking questions and they will not go away. But what has been seen might not be what it seems. The government's shadows dance and deceive. From Malmstrom to Manhattan, London to LA, you can't get the picture if the pale they're gray. But what we have seen might not be what it seems when the government's shadows dance and deceive.
You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
And you want to make sure you check our website out at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. We revamped the web. Scroll down a quarter way down the web and look under bumper music. That group is called Metatron Power and Light. They're out of, well, part of them are out of Washington State. That song is called Disclosure. And actually, I'm going to have Tom, the head singer and leader of the group, on my show here, I believe on September 3rd. We're going to talk to him about his music. We're going to talk to him about, well, UFOs and what made him decide to get into the writing paranormal music. Well, Tobias, I hope you got yourself a cup of tea. I know I got a huge cup here. It's probably about 12 ounces of tea here.
Yeah, I am. I'm ready to go.
I am too. So, you know, I don't know if you caught any of that song, but I rather was impressed with it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you who that was, actually, because I was enjoying it. So I was like, I got to make sure I ask Gary who that is so I can look them up later. So, nice.
Yeah, and you know what? They're my age, which really shocked me. I thought they'd be younger. And the lead singer, I hate to say it, is 70 years old and cranking out songs like this.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the Rolling Stones are still touring, so anything's possible, honestly.
Well, Mick Jagger is going to be probably, you know, being on a stage when he dies at 115.
Right, exactly.
No, this UFO thing, it seems like it's growing more and more than it ever has. And it's not a day I don't get a ton of emails of people, claiming that they're being abducted, not just in our country. I got a message from somebody in Nova Scotia here 2 days ago that she claims she was abducted. And then I had another lady out of Canada who's a RN claims that she's been abducted several times. It's all over everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not. It's definitely not local to the United States. Not even local to North America. You've got people in Europe, Central and South America, Africa, everywhere. It's truly a worldwide phenomenon. It's so pervasive, and what's interesting is how consistent so many of these reported narratives are in the UFO abduction phenomenon. I mean, especially specifically with abduction. People almost universally report specific or certain specific aspects, when they talk about being abducted, and it doesn't matter if they're, in their bed or, well, really there's two, well, I guess three places people are commonly abducted, right? So you've got people being taken out of their bed, and you've got people being taken out of vehicles, and then probably slightly less common than that. You sort of got people just taken when they're outside. Maybe like in the Pascagoula abductions. They're out fishing or something, and they see a UFO, and that's it. But every one of those people reports almost universally like the exact same experience of seeing a light. And then often, sometimes they'll see occupants, after they see the light or they see the craft or whatever, but not always. And quite often, they'll go from seeing them to just being in the craft with no real memory of how they even got there. It's just they see this thing, next thing you know, they're inside someplace and they're being examined. And it's just crazy how you can have all of these different cultures worldwide, all of these disparate societies and cultures, and they describe basically the exact same experience. It's tough to know what to make of it, and it's interesting that you had brought up sort of the government involvement, because we had. And this is where things get even weirder, is when you start seeing the connections between the UFO phenomenon and the other weird stuff. So like earlier with Bet, we had a winged humanoid sighting that was tied into abductions and the UFO phenomenon, and just had all of these crazy connections, and that happens a lot more often, I think, than people might know about. So for instance, during the Lake Michigan Mothman investigation, there was a sighting that crossed my desk here. So I mean, first thing was there was this woman in Wilmington, Illinois. It's about 15 minutes south of Joliet, and which is maybe 60 miles from Chicago total. And she said that this would have been maybe 4:30 a.m. January 28th, 2018. She's sitting outside because that's frankly something that she liked to do. She would go outside usually between like 1 and 4 a.m. Have a cigarette or two, and just kind of watch the skies. I mean, those are prime sky watching hours a lot of the time. And so she's outside and she's looking up at the sky when her eyes are immediately drawn to what she described as like this weird hybrid mix of an owl and a bat. You know, she said the thing was about the size, maybe like a large raccoon, which struck me as particularly odd because that's real